Liberty Nation with Tim Donner.
Well, he may not get a second term, but President Trump's dizzying pace of reform over these last 4 years is already certain to leave an indelible impression on the body politic. To set the pace for an argument that Donald Trump has forever changed politics, consider just the following. The Republican Party has now become the party of blue-collar America, the working class. Then think of how wildly improbable that really is. The GOP had forever been positioned as the party of the rich, culminating with the ascension of the textbook plutocrat Mitt Romney to the party's presidential nomination in 2012. But when Trump descended that escalator 3 years later, it began a process of transformation in policy and branding, which now represents perhaps the greatest sea change in modern American political history. It ranks at least equal to the Democrats' about-face from the party of segregation to civil rights crusaders during the 1960s. With this transformation or transmutation, represents the most pronounced and profound manifestation of the impact this Trump era has had on the body politic and the indelible imprint it will leave behind, there's been so much more. One by one, the 45th president set out to do exactly what he promised. And why wouldn't he? He was the first truly independent president, already possessed of enormous power and wealth and influence, and thus unbeholden to the money changers. He willingly threw himself to the wolves for a purpose much larger than him, the belief that he was uniquely positioned to achieve systemic reform that he and millions who've become his passionate followers believed no professional politician would be willing or able to even attempt. Indeed, his boldest claim of all was that he and he alone would actually drain the swamp. As Trump proceeded to mold the GOP into a populist America First vessel, Democrats, desperate to take him down by any means available, lurched sharply in the opposite direction, one which formed the starkest possible contrast to the reviled president. And they ultimately outed themselves. Once seen as defenders of the common man, these Democrats spent every waking hour promoting sick and twisted Trump hate fantasies, boxed themselves into an ever tighter corner, and are now branded as the party of coastal elites and the grievance industry. Their unrelenting frontal assault on this president, promoted by their media wing, the ubiquitous sycophants in corporate media, together with election tactics which will leave Trump voters forever in a state of outrage, may lend the feckless Joe Biden in the White House, but their leftward lurch leaves them in a precarious position going forward. And you know what? They know it. No candidate in American history had ever vanquished two dynasties in a single campaign. But Trump made short work of low-energy Jeb Bush and more than a dozen others considered the GOP's best and brightest, and then carved up Hillary Clinton, dealing a blow to the solar plexus of the uniparty political establishment. 5 years after his emergence, the status quo is still coming to grips with the cyclone which descended on D.C. named Donald Trump. The bombastic billionaire laid out a wildly ambitious agenda and pursued it with an impatient spirit and oft-times reckless abandon. All along, he presided over the country as if he would only have 4 years to accomplish his lengthy laundry list of priorities. It seemed that at some level, he sensed that his take-no-prisoners brand of systemic reform would meet with opposition sufficiently fierce to take him down sooner rather than later, and he had no time to waste. And so He came roaring out of the starting gate, intent on accomplishing oft-stated but long-ignored goals of conventional politicians, and he succeeded in a big way on issues of existential significance. A flurry of Mideast peace treaties after finally moving our embassy in Israel to Jerusalem. Genuine energy independence. Repatriation, bringing home profits held overseas, new and improved trade deals, de-escalation of long-running foreign conflicts, accountability for our NATO allies, and a radically different approach to North Korea. He joined those game-changing initiatives with the basic conservative principles of lower taxes and deregulation, sending forth the unmistakable message that America was once again open for business. And he produced a vibrant economy with full employment, which only a pandemic could bring low. It's no secret that many people pulled the lever for Trump in 2016 only because of the Supreme Court. And Trump's judicial work is complete after naming 3 conservative justices and creating a constitutionalist majority on the high court for a generation or more. And with the help of Mitch McConnell, he also pushed through lower court judges at a breakneck pace, filling roughly a third of the federal judiciary. So, why should Trumpists limit their lamentations over the reported outcome of this election? Well, cold comfort that it may be, second terms generally don't end well, especially for presidents on a mission who lay it all on the line from day one. The moment a chief executive is reelected, he becomes a lame duck with dwindling political influence, and the momentum and exhausting pace of the first 4 years subsides slowly but surely. Even in the near-legendary presidency of Ronald Reagan, the second term created more problems than solutions, like Iran-Contra. And in the case of Bill Clinton, impeachment, George W. Bush, a disastrous war, and Barack Obama, a midterm repudiation, the years after re-election only imperiled the legacy of each of those presidents. Trump voters understandably feel wounded and aggrieved at what they almost universally consider a stolen election. 8 years of draining the swamp and a bold America First agenda is what they so desperately wanted. And yet, even if the professional politician from Delaware is sitting in the Oval Office after the fog clears and the dust finally settles from this election, these same people will soon realize that despite getting 4 years instead of 8, Donald Trump's most important work is already done.
Stay ahead of the curve with LibertyNation.com. With one click, Liberty Nation delivers tomorrow's news.
And remember, liberty.
Today.
All the time and everywhere.
With LNTV's Hot Topics and Analysis.
You're looking at people just rising up.
Liberty Nation Radio, The Uprising and Rabbit Hole podcasts, and dozens of insightful original articles. And now, you can keep your kids ahead of the curve with LNGenZ.com. LN Gen Z brings a free-thinking education right into your home for students of every grade level with articles, videos, worksheets, and ready-to-go curricula. While the media establishment giants are sleeping, you can stay ahead of the curve with LibertyNation.com and get tomorrow's news today. Liberty Nation and LNGenZ.com.